welcome back to Max Reaction. How are you doing today? Hopefully you're doing good, like I am. Today, we're going to learn about the Inca Empire. This is the Inca Empire out of thin air, extra history #1. So we're starting a new series. So let's go get into it. Let's check it out. Let's react. Let's see what we can learn. I'm going to learn a lot because I don't know much about the Inca Empire. So let's get learning.
The old man clutches a parcel, fat and square, that he's dragged from one end of a fallen empire to the other. He is a mixed-race Christian, the son of an Inca aristocrat and a former translator for priests, seeking to study and suppress native Andean beliefs. 15 years before, he'd had his property confiscated after suing to get his ancestral lands back. Since then, he's wandered the country observing the disappearing Inca life, compiling a chronicle complete with illustrations. It's a history of the Inca, but also a catalog of abuses by the colonial Spanish. His conclusion? Spain must reform the government in a way that protects native people and values their culture. He's carried this book, all 1,000 loose pages of it, through harsh terrain and bandit country. That it survived to this point is a minor miracle. And now, he's finally sending it to its intended recipient, the King of Spain. So Guaman Poma de Ayala takes the only copy of his life's work and hands it to a man aboard a ship. No one will see it again for 300 years.
I had to make a copy, you know? I don't want that lost. I don't want it sunk.
When you get off the plane, the first thing you notice is how thin the air is. And as you exit the airport, a man in a poncho offers you a styrofoam cup full of coca leaf tea to help you deal with the Andean altitude. And your hotel has oxygen tanks in the lobby. Cusco sits at nearly 3,400 meters, or 11,200 feet in altitude. When you walk the cobblestone streets, you feel dizzy, and have to stop for a breath after a few blocks. And then, you start to notice something strange. Every large Spanish building in the city has been built on a foundation of Incan stone. That's because the Spanish didn't build Cusco. They merely built on top of it. It was in fact the Inca, who despite the altitude, built a city here. And not just any city, mind you. A city that ruled the largest indigenous empire to ever exist in the Americas. The Inca Empire spanned 2,500 miles along the Pacific coast of South America, stretching from present-day Colombia to Chile. And it ruled as many as 12 million people. But sheer numbers can't really convey what an impressive feat that was, because the Inca also controlled some of the most varied and harsh terrain on the planet, ranging from snow-capped mountains to the humid Amazonian jungle to the Atacama Desert.
That's impressive.
Parts of which haven't seen rain in nearly 400 years. Walk the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu, a fairly short route you can still follow today, and you'll pass dusty valleys, lush agricultural terraces, alpine tundra, and jungle. The massive Andes themselves create these microenvironments, forcing the moisture out of passing cloud formations so part of the Inca heartland remain wet, while Earth in the other areas stay powder dry.
Impressive.
In fact, many settlements stand at altitudes that are difficult to breathe in for anyone but the Andeans, whose lungs have adapted to absorb more oxygen. Actually, after building all of these celebratory churches on the foundations of the Incan capital of Cusco, the Spanish moved the capital to Lima, partially because they couldn't handle the altitude. But despite the complexity of rolling over and building in such varied environments, the masonry of the Inca highway cuts through all of them, at times tunneling through solid rock, winding its way through ruins of settlements, fortresses, terraces, and temples. And the Inca built this sophisticated state without iron tools, the wheel, riding or draft animals, money, or a written language.
Impressive.
However, they did have quipu, a series of knotted ropes that helped them calculate complex equations and remember numbers and dates. But the rest of their culture, their folklore, their religion, and their history was all oral. Which becomes a bit of a problem when it comes to telling the history of the Inca Empire. Because while the conquest is well documented, we have no sources from before the period of the Spanish conquest. Like the buildings of Cusco, where Spanish constructions stand on Inca foundations, all of our stories of the empire come to us to one extent or another via their colonizers.
And are they telling the truth?
Following the Spanish conquest, dozens of priests, administrators, and former conquistadors set to work interviewing native people in order to capture the empire's oral history. And while these accounts are better than nothing, their usefulness is,
near nothing.
Mixed at best. See, after the fall of the Inca Empire, a struggle began over the empire's cultural legacy. Spanish authorities stripped the valuables from shrines, leveled temples, suppressed native religious practices,
That's sad.
and confiscated the imperial mummies.
That
And
is
part of
sad.
that campaign involved collecting and telling the Incas' oral histories. Some of the priests collected these stories in hopes it would assist in conversion. But many considered the Inca devil worshippers, or wrote specifically to make their rule appear illegitimate, justifying the Spanish conquest.
That's sad.
Conversely, more sympathetic accounts came from conquistadors who married into the Inca elite and had a closer relationship with the culture. But these two can display a major gap in understanding. Even after living in Peru for decades, the Spanish didn't really understand the Inca, or any of the other
Apparently
people
not.
who lived under the empire's banner. Their ideas about religion, society, and politics were just too different for these chroniclers to capture accurately. For example, the Inca didn't perceive history in a linear fashion. To tell the history of their four-province empire, they wouldn't start at the beginning. They'd tell the history of the most important
Now
province,
to them?
beginning to end, before moving on to the next most important, and so on. And it's from one of these Spanish accounts that we get the date of the empire's founding. But even that is controversial, and may be entirely wrong. The closest
Wish we
have
knew
to
for
a native
sure.
perspective comes mostly from a generation of mixed-race authors, the sons of marriages between Inca noblewomen and their Spanish conquerors, all Christians who were born after the empire's destruction. Among them was Blas Vieira, a mixed-race Jesuit, whose pro-Inca views, especially those about native languages being suitable for discussing church doctrine, may have led his order to imprison, then exile him to
Wow.
Spain.
He had the
Eventually,
truth,
he
maybe?
was murdered, and his work burned during an English pirate raid. Only a few excerpts remain from his history, mostly in the work of another half-Inca chronicler, Inca Garcilaso de la Vega, who wrote extensively on the empire's history. But while Vega's book, Royal Commentaries of the Incas, is considered the first literary masterpiece by a Native American, it has problems as a work of history. Because you see, Vega left Peru
Frustrating.
as a teenager and published his chronicles 49 years later, meaning his memory of the oral history had likely degraded. Not to mention, he was writing with a specific objective in mind, while Guaman Poma rallied against Spanish abuses, and Valera pushed for indigenous language and culture to be seen as equal. Vega portrayed the Inca Empire as a perfect society, one without poverty, where aristocrats, like his family, provided
Nothing's perfect.
everything a person
Nothing's
would need.
perfect.
In fact, it appears that this mode of argumentative history was a hallmark of Andean culture. To the Incas, it seems, history was not necessarily about capturing reality in a fully accurate picture, but rather in molding the past to make a specific point. For example, the Spanish found multiple Incan families in Cusco told elaborate but conflicting versions of the same history, each using it to justify their claim to a piece of land.
Right.
And as a
My
result of
viewpoint.
these conflicting testimonies, modern historians have come to vastly different conclusions about the empire depending how they read the sources. And because of this, Incan society has been portrayed as everything, from a communist utopia to a totalitarian nightmare.
We'll never know.
And details of the empire's founding continue to be debated.
We'll never know.
But the histories, paired with archaeology, do tell us this. In the early 13th century, a line of kings began coalescing around what would become the city of Cusco. Manco Capac, the semi-mythical founder,
Capac.
and as the legends say, one of the first people to walk the earth, established the kingdom of Cusco before turning to stone. Then came his successors, each taking the ruling title of Sapa Inca, each named for their greatness
Sapa
in construction and war. And they each took names that matched their glory, and were also pretty baller if I do say so myself, such as the valorous, generous Inca,
Woo!
the left-handed, the splendid accountant, the magnanimous, and my personal favorite, he who weeps blood.
Ooh.
They built the city and expanded their territory, creating the Inca ways of life and bringing order to a chaotic world. Or perhaps not, because archaeological evidence indicates that many of the things we consider Incan accomplishments, their farming terraces, building style, agricultural products, statecraft roads,
Tell me they
and knotted
did it.
quipu
Tell me they did
were
it.
actually inherited from previous Andean societies. But regardless of their source, the Inca were about to use these tools on a scale no one had ever seen. Because in Cusco, the Sapa Inca had a son. He was not the oldest, nor the favorite of his father, but he was intelligent, brave, and with a ruthless vision. He had a birth name, but that is not how he would be known. He would be known
Who is he?
as the Earth Shaker,
Ooh.
Pachacuti. First
Pachacudi.
emperor of the Inca, and a man who would remake the world in Cataclysm.
Ooh, I can't wait.
Special thanks to educational tier patrons Ahmed's.
What an amazing first video for the Inca Empire. We may never know how they became, what they created, what their beliefs was. We may never fully understand, but they are very interesting people. But just building buildings, towns and cities on top of mountains that far up in the atmosphere. Woohoo! Isn't that crazy? Like, I'd love to go visit. I love history. I love going and seeing things from the past, but I don't know how well my body would like it being up there, And as far as the Spanish, come on, Spanish! Why couldn't you record it accurately? I'd love to know. I love to know where people come from, how they became, because you can learn so much. You can increase your knowledge. You can increase your power, because you can understand the past, which will help you maybe understand the future a little bit more. But we'll never fully understand. We'll never fully know. And that's a shame. And that goes for a lot of things, like, just throw something out there. The pyramids. How were they really built? We'll never know fully. But we would love to. It's interesting and it's fun to talk about. So I can't wait for this series to continue, and I can't wait to hear about this first emperor. He sounds like the top of the game. You know what I'm saying? Very smart, very powerful, world changing. They say. So we're gonna learn a lot of interesting things from the Inca Empire, and I can't wait. And we owe all credit to Extra History. Awesome channel. Definitely check their channel out. The link to this video will be down below, so go check them out. But before you do that, tell me something, comment something. I love the comments. And for now, if you haven't hit the subscribe button, you know where it is. Go ahead and hit it, and share, like, and I'll see you next time. Peace.